Cool. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. Thank you everybody that came yesterday and couldn't be here today, but I appreciate everybody kind of coming in. For you that were there yesterday, are there any questions that you have or anything that you want to talk about? Did you make any notes? Was there anything that came up in the day that surprised you? Go ahead.
A lot more went into preparation than I thought. Like having to figure out like the SPL meters or the front end. I didn't realize how much actually went into all that.
Yeah, I think the thing is that especially as we've moved forward in this industry, technology has really improved. You know, when I started in this industry, a lot of times we were just literally throwing speakers up on top of scaffolding and going, looks like that's where the audience is going to be, point it there. And as we've really come to look more at the science and the physics behind it and understand greater things like time alignment and using our measurement tools, we're able to get it to a much tighter place. And so those practices, like actually being a system technician is a relatively new job. You know, doing the basics of actually managing the entirety of a system is really something that's been only really implemented in the last 20 years. For a lot of times, it was just a front of house guy and he put pink noise through it and play a song and go, that's it. But as we're getting more and more computer control systems, and a lot of these manufacturers are building in computer control systems for their stuff. So be it D&B has their software systems, Meyer has their software systems, L Acoustics has theirs. Pretty much all of them have a software control system, even JBL. So those software control systems definitely give us an extra edge. You know, there are things that we can't change in the electronic realm, like just like you noticed yesterday, it was a very echoic space. There's a lot of reflections in there. That made it very difficult to mix in there just because it's like the image smears, right? And so there's not a lot I can do for that in terms of changing the PA time alignment, or changing the EQ is only going to do so much about changing the acoustics of the space.
Right.
But man, the differentiation in an open field of what we're able to do with the PA system now, and I think one of the biggest things, and you guys should look into this too, is what we're able to really do is use the technology to help overcome what is called the inverse square law. And this is some highly technical stuff, but really what inverse square law means is the further you get away from an object, the quieter it gets. And there's an actual ratio that we can use for that. This comes in place two things. Number one, if you're using a microphone, the closer it is to the source, the louder it is. Same thing with the PA. The further you get away from the source, the quieter it is. Now, we use line arrays because the beaming control that happens and the coupling that happens between those boxes hopefully gives us zones that keeps consistency for all the audience. It is a game of sum of averages. There is no perfect. There is no, these guys have the best seat, and then, you know, there are good areas for PA coverage and there are bad areas for PA coverage. But nobody's going to get exactly the same mix. There is no way to triangulate to time align for everybody. So we have to take a law of averages and we go, cool, we put a mic at these different points, we average those sources together and we go, this is about the best we can do for everybody generally across the board. Sure.
Question, like, I know that, you know, on your system you can do like different scenes. Are
Sure.
you actually able to save those scenes and then whenever you go back to Wolf Trap, you can actually reuse
Totally. Yeah, we could do that. I mean, there's no reason that if we went into, say, if we were traveling with our own DSP, we're not. Right now, I'm just taking directly out of the console into the house DSP. DSP is the digital signal processor, so that's going to be whatever the crossover is, whatever's doing the timing, the delays, those type of things. But say if we traveled with a unit that we had our own DSP, I could go and save Wolf Trap, and then I know next time I come back to Wolf Trap, if they haven't moved the PA or they haven't changed anything, load those settings up, it'll be the same as last time. Now, there's a lot of guys, especially the bigger audio companies like Clare Brothers, etc., they play the same arenas. I guarantee you they have Staples Center saved on a file on their computer that they're going to reference at the very least. Now, they might come out there with measurement mics and take you know, their recording of the day or their measurements of the day, but there's system data for that too. It's really helpful to have that.
Probably save a lot of time.
Sure, Neil.
Can we do introductions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I want everybody watching to know who you are.
Okay, cool.
As well as everybody else in the room. So.
Okay. All right, well, I'll start. My name is Sage Anthony. I am a front of house engineer, tour manager, recording engineer, producer. I mix a lot of bands. I work directly for Buddy Guy, and I've been with him for the last 9 years. Also, I'm the front of house engineer for Kingfish. I am the manager for Leonardo Giuliani. We are working on his albums right now at Abbey Road, and a bunch of other artists. We have a company called Panoramic that is really a combination record label and management firm. And yeah, we are here today. I was a student at Omega here in 2001 to 2003. I think I graduated in 2003. And it was a wonderful learning opportunity for me then. And I feel like, from my perspective, some of the most impactful experiences I had here was when guys from the industry came back here and told us what their real world experience is. Because you can only get so much in the classroom. You can get fundamentals here, but there's real world questions that you guys are going to have about employment, about how to conduct yourself, about how to network. And so I wanted to put this together because I feel like there's a gap. You know, there's a gap between graduating school and getting into the field. And so helping you guys make that connection is really important. The other stuff is just we're going to do some mixes today, and we're going to just kind of collaborate and talk about ideas in terms of mixing. We'll talk about what I do in the live realm. And the cool thing is that we're taking the recordings that we did at a live show, and we're going to mix them and work with them today. And I think some of the things you guys are going to notice is just the differentiation in terms of how much bleed there is in recordings that are live. How do we deal with that bleed? Can it be pleasant? Is it obnoxious? Those are things that we have to ask ourselves. So spend more time today. We'll spend a lot of time soloing the things or soloing the buses and going, do the drums sound complete as they are? Now let's move on. You know, so it's a lot of thinking about things not just as they are, but in context of all the other instruments. So yeah. Next, Eli.
I'm Eli Bach. I'm Buddy's lighting guy, system tech, production manager. Been for 3 years. I've been doing live events since I was 12 years old, and this is all I've ever done.
And maybe just so you guys know, Eli's 23 now.
Yeah, 23.
Tell these guys how you got picked up in the industry.
I was working at a 1800 cap amphitheater in West Michigan, and Buddy Guy's camp came through. I was the house lighting guy that day, and I had mentioned to Sage, I'm looking to get out on the road. I feel like I've kind of hit my cap here. I don't think I'm going to grow anymore. Probably a week later, I had an email from him saying, hey, we're looking for a lighting guy. Any chance you're interested? I did 3 trial shows with them, and then my second show I ever did was at the Hollywood Bowl for 14,000 people. I'm incredibly lucky, but it's been amazing.
But also, the takeaway is part of the reason why Eli got the job is he had the courage to ask me, and he had the skill sets to match it. Doesn't matter that he was young. It mattered that he was good at what he did, and he was ready to come to me and say, hey, I'm looking for the next level. Challenge me. And I think that's a big thing that I would share to you guys is like, if you want to get to that next level, you're going to have the courage to go to these companies and say, I know where my skill set is. I know where I want to be. Are you on that trajectory to help me get there? So, Bryce?
My name's Bryce. I got into this gig. I was asked to fill in for a week, and that was a month ago. Me and
I
Sage,
saw his post.
Yeah.
Water engineer. I know
Yep.
we were talking about it a while ago.
Yep.
like, I came to fill in for a week, and yeah, that was a month ago. Me and Sage go back to some festivals that we did probably about 15 years ago or so.
Yep. A lot of Warren Haynes stuff.
Yeah. Lots of large patch lists of inputs and quick changeovers. In that time, I'm also front of house and PM for a band out of Boston, and I've been through a number of different clubs doing cover bands from weddings to big festival stuff, and here I am now doing this thing. Moral of that is just be available.
Yes.
And like don't say no to a gig that might not be exactly what you're looking for, because there's always room to grow and get your craft better at whatever it is you want to do. Keep it really varied. Do all of the audio isn't just music. There's also panel discussions in a corporate ballroom somewhere, and sometimes making one microphone sound natural and full is more difficult than making a band sound
It's
good.
very true.
Mhm.
Because you've only got one source and you've still got to fill out the whole, frequency spectrum of everything. So.
And a key component I make with Bryce is, you know, we had a guy out with us on the road that interviewed well and totally lied to us about his experience, and he couldn't cut the job. And we were in New York at the Beacon, and he dropped the ball. And so I called Bryce and I said, "How quick can you get to New York?" And Bryce, had you ever worked on our console before?
No.
Had you
No,
ever?
I've never seen one in physically in person.
The reason I trusted Bryce to do it is I knew he's an engineer, and I knew his stage skills, and I know we work together. So sometimes it's not just about like knowledge of gear. A lot of it is camaraderie. I trust him. I know he's going to show up. I know he's going to show up on time. I know he has a neat and well-organized stage. Those things matter to me almost significantly more than whether or not you know the desk. Because if you're an engineer, you can learn the desk.
Yep.
Okay?
I had an hour in the green room.
Yep, that's what he
before
got.
That first show.
Yep. I had some playback for him, a set of in-ears, and I said, figure it out.
Yep.
And he mixed the show that night, and the band was happy. And now he has a gig and can stay in it as long as he wants. Okay, so those are things to remember in this industry. Is like you never know where your next gig's going to come from, and half the time it's like being a nice, easy, get along, hardworking person that shows up. My number one rule: show up. You guys are here today. You're above everybody else in the school because you showed up. You're going to get something out of it. That's the biggest thing. So
Showing up.
showing up. Right.
I'm Aiden. I graduated in January, and I do live sound. I've been doing it for 6 years now. I started up with a non-profit, just doing sound for like local student bands, and now I've got my own rig, and I work on just a lot more local bands and breweries, and sometimes small festivals, and I'm just trying to work my way up, and I think I'm going to get a job with MSI really soon here. So
Cool. Great.
I'm Daniel. I graduated from Omega in 2024. Currently doing like part-time live sound with New Wave Audio, and yeah, I'm just looking to expand my knowledge and become more of a proficient engineer and look for more opportunities and everything. So.
Cool.
I'm Josie. I'm currently at Omega and just finished intermediate, so still figuring out what exactly I want to do, but definitely looking into live sound experience right now.
Cool.
And I'm Nix. I'm an aspiring front of house engineer. I think that's really where I want to be. I just graduated in April, and my official graduation is going to be on Friday. So honestly, I haven't had many opportunities. This was my first opportunity to see how a front of house engineer works, and so that was very enlightening.
Cool.
And so I'm just kind of figuring out where I'm going to land in the space. I have like an opportunity to shadow at DC9 nightclub, the front of house engineer there.
Nice.
And looking to maybe work for IMP Productions, doing like 930 Anthem.
Cool.
So hopefully I'll land somewhere around that space.
Those are a lot of great rooms here, and you can build a lot of connections in those spaces for sure.
So we've got everybody introduced. For anybody that's watching and doesn't know, who's coming into this on the live stream or watching the video, can you tell us how we ended up here today? In other words, what did you do yesterday that put us here today?
Oh, in terms of,
Well, you guys did a show at Wolf
Yep,
Trap.
exactly.
Yeah, that hasn't been.
we haven't discussed that
we
yet.
just want to let everybody who's
Sure,
a viewer
absolutely.
know that
So, yeah. So yesterday we had a show with Buddy Guy at Wolf Trap, which is I don't know, probably 3,000, something like that seat,
Yeah, sounds about right.
just south of DC. It's a national park, beautiful amphitheater, Meyer, PA, and I think it was a great opportunity since it's such close proximity to Omega that a lot of you guys were able to come out and kind of get some real world experience on those gigs. And so yesterday the students kind of came out and they got to experience a load-in, building microphone stands, you know, patching everything, running to the split, all that. And so it was just a kind of hands-on experience where everybody got to see, you know, just working in that level of an environment. I think, which is like, for me, when I wanted to get into the industry, it was like, well, I would have done anything just to go and touch the console at the club. So to be able to come and work at that level, and IATSE was there, and they were really very welcoming to us, which I felt was really nice of them to be able to be open to the next generation. So it's really just trying to bridge the gap between the students and the guys that are going to be hiring you. So I feel like that hands-on experience for me when I was starting was so essential. It's like you can't learn some of this stuff. You can't learn how to drive a car by reading the manual. You've got to get behind the wheel. And so sometimes just getting out there and realizing, like, oh, this is what a monitor engineer does. This is what the front of house engineer does. So was there anything that surprised you guys? Was there anything you saw that you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was part of the job?
I wasn't expecting just how much exactly you can do with a modern day console like you had.
Yeah.
Especially I thought the plug-in was just the coolest to me was the EQ multiband
Yep.
compressor.
Yep.
That just looked like it can do a ton.
Yep.
And like you were saying, the parallel compression
Yep.
just looks awesome.
Yep.
So the things you can do now versus however X many years ago.
It's very
It's-
exciting.
Yeah, it surprised me.
When I started in the industry, it was like we had really nice consoles for sure, but they were heavy and they were analog. And like literally, like if we would go out and say I had an H250, a Heritage 250, or a Heritage, you know, 3000 or something like that, you know, it literally takes 6 guys to open up the case and lift it up, and then you have another rack of outboard EQs, and then you have to have a giant power supply underneath it, and you have to have all the power distribution for that. And like just getting the console set up, that was like 2 hours of work. And then you have to go through and verify that all of your actual TS connections or your XLR connections between your effects and your outboard are connected. Like now I walk up, I take the lid off, I turn it on. It's cheating.
An intern at the place I used to work had a Heritage 3000 in his case fall over on his foot, and he was out for 9 months.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
His console weighs 38 pounds.
weighs 38 pounds. The power supply is 2 IEC cables. I can bring up last night's file. If I want to put an 1176 on everything, I have enough DSP to do that. The multi-band compression is really the biggest game changer for me. Having F6s, like the Waves F6 is such a powerful tool. Like when you really start to understand dynamic EQ in a way of like, well, why am I permanently EQing this? EQ is a permanent change to a temporary problem. Like, well, why am I taking 2K out of this the entire night when 2K is only a problem when 2K is a problem? So having that dynamic EQ is a big game changer for me. A lot of things that we can do in the control situation, but in the studio, we have a nice dead room. There's a lot of times you walk into these spaces and you just go, oh my God, is it really going to sound this bad today? And it's nothing you can do about it. Like there's a lot of times where we walk into square rooms that used to be a high school gymnasium that somebody went, cool, this is a great place to have 2,000 people standing. And no, it sounds like a basketball room. That's what, that's yeah, yeah. And you know, if you know enough about acoustics, you know that square is bad. Parallel surfaces are bad. Parallel surfaces made out of wood and metal are really bad. It's standing waves, and it's just like, okay, there's things that we can do, but a lot of times the biggest challenge is not mixing, it's defending yourself from the problematic frequencies or lobing that's going to happen in the room. And so like mixing isn't always fun. Now, if you have a night where everything's dead and quiet, like, and you can just mix, that's awesome. Then you can just get it to the next level. But like last night, I felt like I was playing defense all night. And that's a big part of this game sometimes. Like, I have a man that, despite everything, likes to stare down at his shoes while he talks. Not into the microphone. Audience doesn't care if he's talking. They want to hear him say something. So I have mute groups set up so that when he's talking, everything else on stage gets muted so that all the other background noise goes away. That's really cool. That's nice. It gets my noise floor down. And then I have parallel compression on his vocal so that I can get it above. But those things are like, those are little trips and tips that you learn. You know, having those bag of tricks is just something like, man, it's no different than like watching the evolution of like the Harry Potter movies of like, here's a kid that has no tricks and then he turns into a wizard. As you work with people, you're going to pick up tricks and you go, oh, that's cool. I'm stealing that. How did I never think of that's genius? So half of this industry is just go talk to other people because you know some dork has figured out some amazing way of building in a side chain that does something very cool that you needed it to do. And so like that's what's really great about these consoles now is as we get like it's not just limited to like here's your inputs, here's your EQ, here's your aux ends. There's so much more that we can do now. So that's what's exciting for me. I think one other takeaway I'd like you guys to get is recognizing that in this industry, a front of house mixer is not just a mixer. Anybody that has this ridiculous delusion that you're just going to go on the road and mix, you're out of your fucking mind. You're going to push cases, you're going to lift, you're going to wrap cables, you're going to do all of it. I am 25 years into this business. You guys saw me yesterday. I push cases. I build my mic stands. If you are opposed to hard work, find a different gig because this is a hard job. If you are opposed, if you like sleeping, find a different job
Oh man.
because you're not going to get any. I mean, like literally, me, Eli, and Bryce went to bed at 3:25 a.m. last night, and we're here at 11 a.m. And that's just the name of the game. And if you can't do that, then you're not going to hang on tour. Like, that is the reality. Like, it sucks, but that is the reality. And you have to show up. There is no, I'm too exhausted to work today. So, like, I think a lot of guys come to me and they're like, I'm ready to tour. And it's like, okay, I want you to try to stay awake for 6 days straight and then tell me how you feel. Because that's what you're going to do. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much the fatigue can get to you. And so those are real world things. You're going to be getting up at 11 a.m., working until 11 p.m., sleeping on a tour bus that's rolling down the road. If you have a good bus driver, you're lucky. You have a bad bus driver and you're hitting rumble strips and hearing diesel horns. It's not very pleasant sleep, and you still got to get up and do load-in. So the guys are laughing because that's exactly what happened to us on the way to Wolf Trap.
Oh yeah.
At like
We-
4 in the morning, you just hear semi-horn rumble strips. Little more semi-horn, little more rumble strips.
We had to go through New York. It was a Friday night. Drunk drivers have to avoid them. What are you going to do? But like we're in our bunks. We don't know what's going on. You just feel the bus move and hear the rumble strip and the diesel horn, and it's like, cool. I got to get up in 3 hours. This is awesome.
We've all, I mean, I'm assuming for Bryce, but doing it this long, I feel like you have to have. We've all done shows with food poisoning.
Yes.
Or the stomach
Oh,
flu.
no.
Or
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
vegetarian. Catering doesn't always get it right.
So now, I don't want to scare you away. The other side of it is, yes, I do get to stay in 5-star hotels all the time.
Mhm.
Yes, I do get to go to amazing places like Montreux and, you know, all over Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia multiple times. Yes, I do get to fly amazing business class. Yes, we do get to hang out with really cool people. I've literally done shows with Jimmy Page standing next to me. It's a cool industry to work in. But it is not for the faint of heart. So it's like you have to be willing to accept that there are things that are the benefits, but don't have any delusion that there's not going to be hard times. And that's just one of the things that I feel like nobody tells you, you know? And if you get your first tour and it's in a shitty van, it doesn't mean you don't do your best job. Go out there and do your best job because you never know where your next gig is going to come from. And you might be out there as an opening act for a headliner riding in the van tour, and the headliner's tired of one of their guys and goes, well, he's here every day. Why don't we use him? He's good. I've seen so many people move up that way. So put your best effort forward on every gig you do because you never know who's watching.
Every gig's an interview for the next.
That's exactly the best. That is the best you could say. Every gig is an interview for your next gig, whether you realize it or not. People are watching. And like here, it's like you go and you do a festival or you go and you do a concert, you have the sound company that's there, you have the promoter rep that's there, you have the artists that are there, you have the independent front of house engineers, you have all the stagehands. That's your network. Those are the people that you want to get their numbers in your phone so you can go, hey, you guys need anybody? And also, guys, like, don't be afraid to take a shitty stagehand gig just to get on a gig. All right?
That's where you're gonna catch your gig.
That's where you're going to get your gig. When I was teaching at the University of Vermont, I moved to Vermont, and there was a club there, Higher Ground, and I had mixed there as an engineer. And I was like, I want some side work. Resume and remind them who I am. No call back. I had a friend that said, hey, I'm going to go over there and do a load in. You want to come? You get a free ticket. And I was like, oh my God, fine. I'll do it just to go hang out. And I went and I loaded in, and I ran into Chris Friday, who is the manager of the club, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? You should be back there at the console. And I was like, I wrote you guys 4 times. And he's like, well, you're our new front of house guy. All it took was showing up. So when I say show up. Because there's all the emails, phone calls, texts in the world is never going to get you what a face-to-face just hang is going to get you.
I must have sent emails to about 50 different companies. MSI is the only one that called me back. They're like, dude, your resume looks sick as shit.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. But, you know, again, like a lot of these companies get flooded by resumes.
Yep.
It doesn't hurt just to show up.
A lot of them are resumes of people looking to get on the fence. Apply to do the shop work.
That's another thing, yeah.
Well,
If
that's
you,
what
if
I'm
you
getting
apply for the
for,
shop
so.
work, now you're handling the gear every day, and when they're short for event staff, you're the first call to go on the event staff.
Yep. This is the plan.
Yeah. Any other questions off the top of your head from yesterday? Any things about the flow or thoughts that come to your mind? Anything that... Nothing? Yeah.
What is happening on your end when you're switching between acts, and is there, say, like a target time that you're aiming for in terms of turnaround?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very fortunate that when I started in this business, and Bryce too, we did a lot of festivals. And that means just band back to back to back, and you have half an hour.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. A lot of times they try to do it in 15 minutes. We do this by a lot of times having sub boxes pre-pinned. So what we'll do is we'll build a drum riser, put a sub box with a multi-connect on that drum riser, break the multi-connect so that all the XLRs are pinned into a box. The rolling riser comes out on deck, one multi-pin. Now all of my drums are patched.
The other end of the multi-pin stays patched in the stake. It's split.
So if we just talk about general consensus of like the patch, the input, there's one split that all the inputs hit that split. Now that split is typically going to go 2 or 3 ways. One to monitors, one to front of house, one to a recording feed if anything, or of a broadcast truck or something like that. But usually those are the 3 main splits that happen on a stage that size. The monitor and front of house split is the most important so that we both have independent gain control. He's going to want to gain his mics differently for monitor mix, and I'm going to want to gain them from front of house. It's just in terms of like how much he's going to want that gain to be on the microphone so he can prevent feedback, and I might want a hotter gain out front of house. That gives us independent control on both sides. That's really nice. The way we get it into that split is the sub boxes. The sub boxes are essential because really you're trying to get distribution out onto a stage as quick as possible. And so what we really do is come up with locations. Like on a typical festival stage, you'll have 5 or 6 sub box drops. We have 1 or 2 that are constantly at drums, an upstage, one that goes center so that if there's anything like DIs or mics that go up there, a stage left, a stage right. And then you just look at your festival plot and go, cool, that's where the guitars are over there, stage right. So we'll go into sub box, put it in channels 2 and 3, and that distribution really helps us for changeover. And learning that, guys, is almost more important than learning mixing, because your first gigs are going to be patch. It's going to be setting up a stage, and like, man, a good patch guy on a festival that gets me changed over, he's going to get a good pay rate.
Yep.
Okay?
And they're going to get another gig.
And they're going to get another gig. If I can throw 28 inputs at you and say, fit that in the festival patch, you have 6 minutes, and you can get it done, you have a gig. And I'm not kidding. That's what you have, right? Like 5 to 6 minutes. That's what you get.
By the time everything gets into place.
And not only do you have to get it right, you have to verify it before we go live on the PA. So a lot of times in festival environments, this is where you're going to find a lot of work, guys, because festivals are just, they're soaking up people. They need people. They're going to be running 2 stages at the same time. There's going to be band on B stage and band on A stage. While band on B stage is playing, you are changing over band on A stage. And oftentimes trying to sound check them while there's another PA playing. So they are going to get some monitors on. I, at front of house, am listening to cans, roughing in a mix, or making sure the console that I came with is the mix is working. I'm verifying inputs. Downbeat, 3, 2, 1, we go. You got to have a mix together now. And unlike the studio, there's no take it back 2 bars. It's just got to go. You know, there's no edit undo. And so live is a lot of pressure. And I'll tell you, we've had situations where right as we were supposed to go, the console stopped working and we had to restart it. We've had situations where,
RF got turned off.
yep,
Oh god.
Sometimes you guys probably run with generators and stuff.
we don't. A lot of festivals have generators. I highly recommend that if you're in this business, you travel with a multimeter so you know what the voltage of the power that you are plugging into is, because you can blow things up.
Have you ever had a generator go out?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I have before. It's not good.
Carry the
That's-
GPS on your
yep.
consoles, just so you have an extra couple minutes to hit save.
And I think another good takeaway I would say, guys, is that, like, you'll notice mixing is the fun part, okay? Mixing is where we want to get to. All of my systems that you see in place on stage, why I have all the numbers and the stage plots on everything, why I have all the sub-snakes on my cable, why I have everything super, super organized, is because I want the build to be as fast as possible so I can buy back the balance of time to spend mixing. So I can buy back the balance of time to do a virtual sound check. If my setup, if I have a 2-hour window from load in to be ready to go, and my setup takes 90 minutes, then I only have a half hour to mess with my console. If I can get that down to an hour, then I have an hour to mess with my console. A lot of guys don't learn this. You have to have an organized stage that deploys fast, because that's what's going to get you the balance of time on your desk. Like, getting time on your desk out here, it's hard. You're not out here to mix. You're out here to mix and do 9 other jobs. Everybody. So, like, I think that a lot of times system deployment, good organization, and understanding that half of our job is not when things are right, it's when things suddenly go wrong, and how do you fix it as fast as possible with the least amount of impact on the audience. You know, we literally had a situation where we were playing a show, Buddy was about to go on stage, and one of the opening acts, without telling us, had turned off our RF. And we went out there, and my band can't hear themselves in their in-ears. And we're like, what is going on? The RF rack is on. What's going on? Like, we're really about to go. Somebody had walked over the rack and just turned off the RF transmitters because they felt that the frequencies are in way with us. And they didn't bother to tell us.
Or turn it
So
back
so
on.
literally, like, my artist is about to walk on stage, and my bass player's like, I got no ears. I'm not walking out there. I got no ears. And I don't blame him. And so I'm running from front of house, and me and Bryce are like,
Both of us using all of our troubleshooting skills.
what is going on?
to
What do we
figure this
do?
out.
We have, you know, the audience is cheering. They're ready for him to walk on stage. The pressure's on.
The opening music is playing.
Yep.
Has been playing.
Yeah.
And Bryce is getting ready to run a hard line when I noticed, oh, what idiot did this?
Yeah.
But somebody did. Now, what could have we done to prevent that? Almost nothing. You know what I mean? I mean, like, our racks are on stage, we cover them, we walk away, you hope that there's etiquette.
Yep.
But in this case, there wasn't. So having good troubleshooting skills and remaining somewhat calm when everything's like, you're about to get hit with a fucking tsunami, and you better be ready.
Yeah.
And having a backup plan so that you have some kind of calm. You know, same thing happened to Tedeschi trucks. We plugged in the Pro Tools rig. And
It
it-
took down the entire console.
It just, for whatever reasons, there was a loop in the Ethernet connection, and the console froze. And, you know, 30 seconds before show, I had to do a reboot on my desk, which took about 4 minutes. It's really awkward to have 4 minutes of silence when your artist is about to walk on stage. So, you know, what do? We put up a light. We have the other console put up house music, and we just try to, like, keep the audience calm for a minute. But having those backup plans is really, like, guys, mixing's the fun part, okay? I just got to get this into your mind of, like, the technicality, the functionality, making sure that the pink noise gets to the sources and that it comes out of where it's going. That's 80% of the job. Is it working? Is it going to work through the show? Okay? Am I being nice to my musicians? Do they like working with me? Do they trust me? Do they think that do they have enough confidence in my ability that they can ask me for something? Do I have a good relationship with them? This stuff is all above mixing, okay? So we're going to do some mixing today, but, like, I just want to get out there. Like, if you want to work, people skills, work ethic, showing up, cleanliness and hygiene,
Don't be the stinky guy.
not bringing your bullshit relationship or drug addiction issues to my camp. I don't have the fucking time or patience for it. You have to have your life together if you want to be invited on my tour. I had a bunch of friends that wanted the Monitor gig. Their lives are a mess. I'm not bringing them on the road. They might be nice guys, but I'm not bringing your drug addiction issues or your alcohol addiction issues or you can't get your life together issues on the road. Because on the road, I don't have time to deal with it. So, like, you cannot present or create problems for your employer if you want to stay busy. These things, again, I just keep reiterating this because this is all superior to mixing skills. You might be the best mixer in the world. If you're an asshole, everybody's going to know, and they're not going to want to work with you. Okay? I would rather work with somebody that is lesser skilled, that has a desire to learn, than somebody that knows it all. Okay? That's just across the board. And I feel like, Eli, you must feel the same. Bryce, you feel the same. We know these people. You know, I'll never hire them. I'm not going to hire a know-it-all. I'll hire the guy that says, I don't know what I'm doing on this, but I have the manual and I'll learn it. That's the attitude.
If you want to make it in this industry, it's really easy. All you have to do is not make your employer's life harder. If you can make their life easier, they may have hired you to be an audio engineer. Great, cool. Big who cares? If it makes their life easier today to go in the warehouse and push cases, that's what you're doing today. Because, now, don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place for that.
Sure.
Very much so. But like, make their life easier, and you will become indispensable, and that's how you stay busy.
Also, the not my job idea.
Nope.
Look, here's the deal. I don't want to be an electrician, okay? But if power's not working right and I have a local electrician that sucks, I'm going to go and ground the generator myself if I have to, okay? It doesn't matter to me. The ultimate end of the day is the audience doesn't care who didn't do the job. If it doesn't sound good, they're mad at the artist. They're mad at that they paid, you know, $138.50 for a ticket and it didn't sound good. So if that means that I got to go pound a ground rod and pour salt water over it, that's what I'm going to do. If that solves my problem, I don't mind. So it's like you do what you have to do to look. I mean,
The show must go on.
again, recognize that in this industry you are very much so representing yourself, and your work ethic is representing you. So if you go out there and you do really good work, you're building a good reputation for yourself. If you go out there and do sloppy work, look, we know who the sloppy guys are. We all know that, like, there's people whose names got brought up for this, and as soon as we said the name, we're like, no, I don't trust that guy because he's sloppy. So those things matter more than mixing skills, okay? Cool. Where you guys want to go next? Where you want to direct this ship? Do you want to talk about some mixing? You want to get some tracks going, or you have any other questions about the day yesterday?
How many hands did you have on deck yesterday?
We had a bunch.
Dude, so many.
It was a union stage, so I think we ended up having like a dozen. What I typically ask for is 4 to 6.
Oh, wow.
What typically happens in our day is Eli and Bryce go in the trailer. I go on stage. They dump the equipment. The stagehands bring it in. As they bring it in, I set it up as much as I can until the trailer is dumped. Then they come meet me and we finish the setup as a group. The one thing I will say with stagehands is that you will realize the quality of stagehands will vary drastically from day to day. Some days you might get guys that are incredibly knowledgeable and you go, hey, I need you to run my multi-pin from here to here, and they'll do it for you. You also may have guys that are going to wrap your XLRs around their arm, high as fuck. You have no idea how they got the job. I've had guys literally wrap cable up with my microphone still attached, dragging them across the stage. I've had guys smelling of liquor on stage, all of it. So you have to think about in these situations delegation of like, do I trust this person to accomplish this task? And if there are days, and these guys will tell you, that we get in and we quickly assess that none of the people that we've been given are competent enough to do any task. And we say, thank you for pushing the gear onto the deck. You guys can break now. And we're polite about it, but we want them to go away because they are a liability, because they are in the way talking about NASCAR or Donald Trump or whatever they're talking about, and that prevents me from doing my job. What they are not doing and we're not capable of doing is any kind of actual basic work. Like if you say, please run this cable, they're going to leave the coil over at the box and leave a bunch of mess for you. And then you have to go back and clean their mess. It is much easier for me to just say, you guys can break, and then me and Bryce will run the cables.
Yep.
Now there's going to be days where you just have rock star hands, and you go, cool, this is my distribution, those are my sub snakes, and you're going to turn around and you're going to be like, how'd that get built so fast?
Like yesterday.
Yeah, because we had union stagehands that are trained, and you get to work with that professional level. But again, in this industry, you get what you pay for. You get into smaller venues. You know, the promoter doesn't want to pay for good stagehands. You get guys that have no skills. Maybe they can push the cases. Maybe.
Have trouble with stage left and stage right.
Yeah. Which is exactly why I tell you guys that stuff. Like, first thing you need to know when you walk on a stage direction.
Yep.
What is stage left? What is stage right? What is downstage? What is upstage? Those are your cardinal compass. You know, on a stage. That's your map. Somebody tells you where something's going, you gotta know. If somebody's like, hey, I need you to drop a DI downstage left, boom, where's it gonna go? Downstage left. Cool?
Then move it a foot or two over, but you're generally over there.
Yeah,
you
I mean,
got it generally.
know your quadrants. Know where front of house is. Know what a thrush is. Know you know, where barricade will go. Those type of things.
And on loadout, pull the tape before you pull the cable.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That's a really big one.
Don't
Pull the tape
pull
first.
spike tape off of people's stuff unless they ask you.
Yes.
Little
probably-
colored strips of tape mean something. Don't
Yeah.
touch them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're there for a reason. Anything else? Yeah.
Do you ever work as, like not this tour, but in general, do you ever work as monitor mixer instead? And what are some of the job differences? Is there like different signal flow? What's
Sure.
the-
So before I was in the position of front of house, I was a monitor engineer for this band for 7 years. So I did the IMs and the stage mixes. So now Bryce has that job. It is a completely different job. When you are mixing for the audience, you are mixing a 2-track mix, you know, with sub and fill, but really it's a left-right, and you're mixing it for the audience, and you're generally mixing it for what sounds good to your ears. When you are mixing for a band, you're mixing for either their ears or their wedges. What they want may not be what you want. That's fine. The other problem is they may not know what they want. And you might have to be able to communicate with them to express what they want. There's a language gap here because we're technical people and they're musical people. And we're talking about 440 hertz and they're talking about A. You know what I mean? It's like being able to cross those boundaries of like the differentiation of where we're talking is half the battle. I think part of my job is not the technical side, it's about building relationships. Okay? If you can get musicians to a place where they can trust you, then you can get their mix someplace else. Okay? If they trust you well enough to go, I don't know what's working here, but like I feel like the piano is too much here or the bass is too much here or it's okay, well then we can try different things. But if they don't trust you, they're not even going to talk to you. And they're just going to be like, I don't want to work with that guy. Bryce came in and had to work for a week just to establish trust for musicians. You have literally a driver micrometers away from their eardrum. It's a big relationship. If you hit them too hard with that, it's going to hurt. You literally have the power to make them go deaf. Okay, so it's like, it's a great power, great responsibility, right? Make sure that you have limiters on your outputs. Okay? Make sure you're thinking about how your actions affect those musicians. Because if they get one good hit, they're not going to trust that their in-ear should be in. So those are really good things to keep in mind. Another thing is like, where you're standing and where it sounds where you're standing has absolutely nothing to do with where your drummer's sitting. Okay, so if I want to know what my monitors for my drummer sound like, I'm going to go sit next to him with the iPad and be like, oh yeah, now I understand. That's really fucked up. You hear a ton of guitar. Okay, cool. You don't need any guitar in your mix because it's bleeding into all your mics. That's why there's no guitar in your mix. When I'm listening to your mix from side stage, I'm like, how does he hear the guitar? When you go out to where the drummer's sitting, you're like, how does he hear anything but guitar? Okay, so sometimes you have to physically go with your iPad or even just go and sit there next to them and be like, oh, or stand there next to them and be like, oh, I hear what you're hearing. Now I'm going to go back to my console, make changes, and walk back. You can't do that job just by standing at the console. You can't do it. So like half of that battle, and the other thing really is that most of the way to being a good front of house engineer is being a good monitor engineer. Okay, like if you want to learn, I learned so much about mixing front of house by mixing monitors because I learned how to mix without the room in the way. You have in-ears right here. If it sounds bad, guess whose fault it is? Okay, like the room might have some affect on it, but really at the end of the day, in-ear monitors, if you have a mic close to the source, you can beautifully add reverb, you can add delay inside of IEMs that you can't do in a lot of rooms because there's just the space of the room. There's no point in adding reverb to a mix at Wolf Trap because reverb's free, whether you want it or not. You can't return it.
Most of the venues.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
But say you want like, oh, I want the Abbey Road Chambers reverb on my musician's in-ear. I can do that with the Waves console. That's really cool. But again, do they want it there? Do they know they want it there? I mean, like, I mean, Dan was, our keyboard player was playing his keys, and he's just like, oh, it just sounds dry. So I put just a touch of reverb on the end, and he's like, oh, this just glides now, a little bit of nuance. Knowing well enough to ask that question, does this help? That's half the battle. He didn't know to ask for reverb. It just feels dead and dry. And he's messing with his internal piano reverbs, and they don't sound very good. And I'm like, well, I have Abbey Road right here, a little sound, a little return. Set it to your ears. It's in stereo. Put a little compression on it. It's like, oh, this is a beautiful sounding verb. I didn't know I liked that so much. Just knowing to ask that question.
Or a bass player that wants a really bright, reflecting bass in
Yeah.
their ears because they're standing in front of their cab.
Yeah.
And they get all that low body and they can feel all that. Just something bright in their ears.
Yep.
Hear it a little better.
That's a really good example. You know, why does he not want any low end? Because he's standing in a standing wave. Like he's standing right in front of the cabinet.
Right.
But he needs the attack, so the attack goes to his ears. Monitor engineering is also trying to operate your console while not looking at it. Because if you're looking at your console, you're not looking at the band. And if you're not looking at the band, you don't know if they need something.
Right.
So you've got to get really good at looking at the band going, oh, he needs more drum. Okay. Changes. Done. Got to be fast at that. So speed is part of it. You know, like being able to have your eyes open on the band, watching, engaged, not staring at your console. If you're staring at your console, then you're not looking when they're like waving at you. We do have a talkback system so that they can go, hey, Bryce, can I get more of this in my ears? That's helpful. But, you know, I think sometimes eye contact just helps too. A talkback mic, another great thing. Like, man, like the last thing you want to do when you're a monitor engineer is be like, hey, guys, can I get more kick? It's obnoxious. Hey, gentlemen, can I get more kick, please? And you put it in their in-ears. So simple, okay? Like communication. Like one of the first things I do when I'm establishing a monitor mix for bands, before I do anything else, is I get my talk back into everybody's ears, and I get their mics into their ears, so that everybody can talk to each other. Once you've established that base level of communication, then now we have a level where the vocal is going to be basing the mix around. Like that's really smart, okay? Because what do you want to hear in most of your mixes on stage? You're following the vocal, okay? Like, or at least something that has to be strong enough, okay? Now we can build our base around that. We have communication open. You know, it's kind of strange that we start oftentimes just in the festival world in drums because that's the first channels. I get it. But for me, it's like, get your vocals first, just so you have communication between stage, between everything. And you have a bass line of like, well, that's how loud the vocal's going to need to be in the PA so that it hits the back seats. Let's build the bass around that. I don't want to build my bass around the drums, you know. There's just a lot of inputs. These are all just good ideas that I've learned the hard way. So.
I find that sometimes, obviously, doing smaller stuff, getting the monitors done is sometimes more important than the front house.
Absolutely.
So, because I mean, if the band's happy, they're gonna ask for you again.
Correct.
I mean, they can never tell what's going on in front house.
No.
But I always try to check monitors first, make sure they're happy. Again, they're always gonna ask me for stuff about 50 more times throughout the show. But as long as I get a good baseline going for them, and they say they're all good before I start doing mains,
I mean, I would say realistically, if somebody gave me a half hour for sound check and I had to do monitors and front of house, I would spend 25 minutes doing monitors and 5 doing front of house. And then as soon as the band got in, as soon as the audience got in and we had the first song, I would get the rest dialed during the first song. Because you can't really fix those monitor changes once you're going, or it's a lot harder.
especially with your game.
Exactly. And again, if a band can't hear themselves play, they're not going to perform well. They're not going to perform well if the audience doesn't come. If the audience doesn't come, you don't have a job. It's that simple. They need to be able to hear themselves to perform well. That is more essential than anything. You know, if the guys are up there struggling to know if they're in the same key, it's not going to be a good performance. So it's like it is directly behooving to your future for it to sound good for the musicians so that they play well, so that you get invited back, so that the audience keeps coming back. So it's like it's everybody wins scenario, you know? Take the ego out of it, think about yourself and your needs last. Like, all fine, the channels are there. As for me, if I see that the channels are there, if I know that they're there and they're not buzzing, so many years of festival, I'll make a mix in 5 minutes. I'll get it there. The vocal will be there, the drums will be there, and it'll tighten up over the first 2 songs. I'll get it there. But you can't be communicating with the band while they're playing. So you're dead right. You're dead right. You've got to get that monitor mix right.
I'll literally stand up on stage for the first song just to,
Yep.
with the iPad, just to make sure everybody's monitoring
Yep.
fine and everybody has what they want.
Yep. And you'll build good relationships that way.
And even they don't know until they actually start playing, which is the other thing too.
Totally. That's the other thing too. Is like you can do sound check.
Sound checks are wise.
Yeah.
Then the audience fills in and they're cheering or they absorb or whatever. The room shifts. You know, the room yesterday between when it was empty and when it was full, I thought it would get better when it was full. It did not.
Oh no.
It did
The
not.
temperature change did not help you out.
No, it was harsh. There was a lot of frequencies I was fighting in the upper end, you know, and it's just like a lot of that stuff was just coming off of stage. So EQing, it's not going to change anything. You know, like if there's harsh frequencies that are coming directly off of Buddy's amp, it doesn't matter if I EQ the PA. You know, it's just going to bounce around in the wood and the metal of the venue. And that really sucks. It just kills the image. But that's one of the balances of being in front of house guys, is like it's not always pleasant. Sometimes you just have to take those balances of like, okay, well, what am I happy about last night's mix? You could always hear the vocal. The bass was present. The drums felt pretty good. I felt the snare was super thin, and I fought with it all the night to get it to like not be thin. But there's only so much EQ you can do, you know? I felt like there was way too much wash of just shh in from the overheads.
That's never fun.
And it's not something that, like, it was in all the mics. It wasn't like I had my overheads high. It was just wash. It was smear. Am I thrilled with that? No. But again, it's like if I was happy with that, then there's something wrong with me. Most of my engineer friends, like my friend Quackenbush, like every time I talk to him and I tell him it's a great mix, he's like, yeah, I'm perpetually dissatisfied. You know, like it's okay. It's okay to be perpetually dissatisfied with your mixes just because you expect it to be there. You know, that's fine. I think, again, like the stuff that we're going to mix, I think was one of the few nights that I was like, oh, this sounds great. But we went into a casino that had a beautifully hung D&B rig that was time-aligned perfect, curtains everywhere, soft absorbent surfaces on everything, a sold-out venue. It was perfect scenario. So I was like, great, nothing smearing today. But then tomorrow we're going to be, or whatever, 2 days from now, we're going to be in some horrible theater with some crappy JBL PA that is just, it's going to be a nightmare. And you have to still have the same attitude of like, even though the equipment isn't great, I need to make that equipment sound as good as it possibly can. Okay? Anybody can put a Lamborghini in a ditch, all right? The real question is, can you make the Honda Civic last on the road? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, cool. That's what I have tonight. I can complain it's not a Lamborghini, or I can just run it as best as I can.
So, what determines whether or not you use like a house system or a house crew or not? Because I mean, I also went to a show in Boulder. It was like Psychedelic Funk Records.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they were using the house crew and the house system and lights and everything.
Yep.
Which was kind of crazy to think about.
Yep. So it really comes down to what the deal is in the contract side of things. A lot of times, so like for example, we did a run with Tedeschi trucks, and they're at a level where they tour with their own semi and their own PA system and their own system technician, and they load in at stupid early in the morning and fly their own PA and do their own time alignment, and they have consistency in that way. I don't have the budgets to do that. I don't have the people to do it. I don't have the time to do it. So I get PA du jour. Oftentimes, the rooms that we're playing, PAs are either permanently installed or it's brought by a local sound company that already has a foot in the door, and so it's really hard to, you know, to kind of get away from that. I have stipulations in our rider that say these are the basic qualifications I expect, and 85% of the time that gets ignored.
Oh,
Because at the end of the day, what the promoter like AEG or Live Nation cares about, did people come? Did they buy alcohol? Did we make money? That's how this industry works. Did they come? Did they buy alcohol? Did we make money? Alcohol is, like it or not, pays for most of it. Okay, so whether or not they care about what PA you have is going to be contingent upon how many tickets you've sold. And if you haven't sold a lot of tickets, they're going to tell you, you get what's there. Now, if you get to a point where you're selling out venue after venue, and then they're a lot more accommodating.
They get a lot nicer when you sell out.
It's amazing when you make piles of money for corporations how much nicer they are to you. And it's amazing how much they don't care if you're not making money for them. This is real world. This is just real world. And also, trajectory of artists, it's like you might think that they're going up and then they're going down. You might think that they're stagnating and then they take off. You might think that you've locked yourself within a good group of guys, and then the guitar player gets a new girlfriend and she thinks your mix sounds bad because she doesn't like you and you're fired. It's just a weird industry. Sound is really subjective. Somebody might say it didn't sound good. Okay, well, where were you standing? In the lawn. Okay, sorry, I have no control over what's going on out there. I didn't even listen to the lawn. You know what I mean? It's a mono sum. Okay, I'm sorry it sounded bad out there, but I'm sending them a sum. Where were you standing? Oh, well, over by this trash can. Oh, so you were hearing beer bottles all night? That's nothing. What am I supposed to do about that? So it's all subjective, right?
I'm glad you brought that up. I haven't done big venues.
Sure.
And I'm curious about the speakers for the lawn at a place like Wolf Trap.
Yeah.
Do they get delayed?
Yeah, they do. So they
Yeah.
do a timeline on it. That's good. And I think that a lot of these venues have learned that that's a necessity. But Wolf Trap actually, I think they had a mixer out there that was taking a mix plus. So they were taking splits of our stuff and kind of compensating for it in the lawn is what they were saying. Yeah, they had another console out there specifically for the lawn.
Where did they pull the splits from?
From the split on the main.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They had someone else doing the lawn.
Correct,
Okay,
exactly.
that's interesting.
It's very interesting. I think it's native to only that place. I've not seen it very many places. A lot of times you go to a lawn and all it is just a mono sum of your left-right, which sucks because whatever you were doing in your left-right that you wanted to have image is just gone now. But what do? It's going to, maybe 4 or 5 arrays that are just outfills for the audience. And so really for a lot of that stuff, it's like I kind of come back to is that people come along to the show to sing along to the songs they know. They got to hear the vocal. You don't have a vocal, man, what are you doing here? Okay, that's like,
Kick drum to dance.
yeah, that's really the thing is Eli and I kid about this of if we had a worst case scenario, I could run my show with 12 inputs. You know what I mean? It's it's not a dream, but really what matters, the vocal, the kick drum, the snare drum, the guitars and the bass, a little bit of keys. We'll make a show happen with mono inputs. It's end of the day, it's not there's a nuance and there's what's necessary. At the end of the day, I don't care how great your drum kick sounds. If you can't hear the vocal, you know what I mean? That's what people are. That's the money. That's what people are coming for. They want to sing along to the songs that they know, and that is so essential. All right. What do you guys think about maybe we just take a 15, we come back, and then we start working on just getting some inputs in the console and talk about some mixing technique stuff? I'm going to let you guys drive a lot, and I'm going to make suggestions, okay? I think the best way to learn to mix is to mix. So I'm going to put you guys forward, and I'm going to sit in the back here. We have all these incredible tools. I expect you to use them,
Learning the
Yeah, I mean,
That sounds bad. I would
do we
not
have
find out why you made it sound bad?
Yeah.
do we have the ability to bring up Waves plugins on Pro Tools?
I believe so.
Yeah, we
I
could.
don't think there's any problem there.
Let's see what we got going on.
Do you have? I have my license. If we could just pull up some F6s, that would be great, just so I can talk a little bit about dynamic compression, dynamic EQ.
I don't see.
I'm really not up to what plugin collection we have currently
I
on
don't
this computer.
see F6 on.
I'm pretty sure it also different. It's different. It's different from room to room.
It's in EQ.
It's also in Dynamics,
Should be in dynamics too.
but here's all my Fs.
Yeah, they're not there.
But I think Sector 8.
No, that's the emo stuff.
Oh.
Okay, well let's take a break either way. I need to get some hydration, and then we'll come back and. You know, we have unlimited tools just because we don't have an F6. Is there any kind of multiband?
Probably. Let me
We'll
look around.
Yeah, we'll fuck around with it. We'll figure it all. I think the best thing to do really is just let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll start messing around and we'll talk about all the different things
I
that we
want
use.
to say there's some multi-band compressors here.
Yeah, if you go to dynamics, go under over there, and then it would be.
I mean, we got C4. That's what we
I mean, I have licenses. I just don't. We would have to install them.
Yeah.
I know we use a multi-band compressor to the mastering classes here.
Yeah,
It tells us
Mhm.
what they
definitely
work.
there.
It's definitely. It should definitely be in there. Like the.
Pro multiband dynamics.
Yeah, I think it.
That sounds
It's a multi-band comp. It's at least getting closer.
okay. I was gonna say who's
Sounds like
It'll be-
does the same job.
Yeah.
A little less configurable, but you can get there.
4 bands.
Okay.
Well-
I'll be right back. I'm gonna hit the back.
All right, if you're watching our video or if you're watching our live stream, we're taking a little break. We will come back. I'm going to stop the stream for a moment. But stay tuned.